Hey everyone, it is so good to see you. We are in I think this is going to be our second conversational strategy. Actually, I just made up that whole terminology, Kirk. So, but I have a good friend here with me, Kirk Nugent. He is man, he is what you would call the premium Swiss Army knife in
Oh,
in the consulting, speaking, live streaming. Kurt, I'm just gonna
yeah.
go ahead and read your bio. How about that? So my man Kirk Nugent, he is do you like to use the middle name Richmond?
Yeah,
Richmond is a
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool
yeah.
middle
I
name.
mean, I actually, my signature at all my previous jobs have always been K. Dot Richmond Nugent. So, my email for my
Ah,
email, that's what I
yeah,
always
yeah, yeah,
sign my
yeah, yeah.
emails as. So,
Okay, okay.
for a little while there, I was known as Richmond. And then I started working for the church, and my
Yeah.
cousin also worked for the church,
Uh-huh.
and he knows me as Kirk. So
I
now I'm
just
Kirk.
kind of right, right. Cool. So Kurt is an innovator. He's a speaker, leader, host, and producer. And these are just some of the titles that accurately describe who he is.
Mhm.
As a speaker, Kurt challenges everyday people to think holistically about their relationship to technology, not just at work for their career access, but also at home for their families.
Mhm.
But as a leader, he has managed information technology teams as director and CIO for an NGO in South Africa.
Right.
Kurt, we're in South Africa.
In Johannesburg, Pretoria,
Okay.
that area, yep, yep.
Nice,
But
nice,
but the
nice.
company covered the entire 23 countries of the SEDAC region. So yeah,
Ah, okay.
we got a chance to travel.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. And also for two higher ed institutions in North Alabama. That's
Yes,
cool.
sir. Yes, sir.
So he is also the host and producer of the show How It Works. I still have not gotten on How It Works. Shame on me. We'll work
Ah,
on that. We'll work on that.
we will work
And
on it.
has been, yeah, yeah, yeah. And has been instrumental behind several large scale live stream broadcasts. As
Yep.
a matter of fact, Kurt, you're one of the reasons, the inspiration as to why I am live streaming more frequently. So
Amen.
just wanna throw that out
I
there.
appreciate that,
Um,
man.
and he's also a self-professed Jesus geek who loves to engage with
With audiences.
audiences.
That's right.
So
Which is
uh,
not common.
absolutely.
The extroverted geek usually, you can tell an extroverted geek because they're not looking at their shoes, they're looking at your shoes.
Ah, right, right, right. Oh man, Kurt, it's great to have you here, man.
Definitely.
And so today it's interesting. The way this actually was going to formulate was you were going to come with a problem
Hmm.
and we were
Hmm.
going to solve the problem live. It's going to work with my outdated tablet here, and we're just
Come
going
on.
to work, rough it out. But then you said something very interesting,
Hmm.
almost not sobering, but it kind of was a slap on the wrist to me when I reached out and was like, yo, what's a good time? And he said, listen, I live and die by the calendar.
Yes, sir.
Here's my calendar. And I'm like, Chris, you got a honey book, Chris. You got the acuity scheduling. What makes you think? And you know what I realized? You know what I realized, Kurt?
Hmm.
Once we become sometimes a little bit too familiar, and especially for those of us who are still professional with other
Right.
people,
Right.
we kind of start to throw away some of the productivity tools that we would use for anybody else in
Right.
any other situation. I'm like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. There's a reason why you
Yeah.
have the scheduling stuff.
That's right.
It doesn't
Listen.
matter who it is. You have to respect your own. So the fact that you did that, I'm like, okay, that was honorable, man. So I like that. So that being said, when we connected, I'm looking through your stuff and I'm like, what challenge does Kirk need to solve? As a matter of fact, Kirk, I need to ask you questions. you know?
Nah,
So
man. Listen, one of the it's interesting, man. Just growing, right? I mean,
yeah.
and again, I went to schedule something with a colleague, a mutual friend,
Mhm.
put me in touch with this woman in business, somebody that wanted to have on the show. She's a social media expert. I mean, what she's doing with Facebook advertising and Facebook automated responses and some of that AI stuff there
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. And so he put me in touch with her, and I went to, grab a slot on her calendar, and I just went through this whole process. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then so when we got into the meeting, I started to talk to her a little bit more about, some of the things that she's doing. Is she
Mhm.
thinking about expanding? And she was like, nope, not expanding. If I need to expand,
Mm.
then for a given client or for a given project, then I need to actually, I'm probably outside of my lane.
Okay.
Right. Because
Okay.
she said
Yeah.
the type of business I want to do, type of clients I want to have are people who I
Mm.
can manage myself.
Gotcha.
And because she said I can't put my secret sauce on it without actually being involved. And
Yeah.
some people may have some differences of opinion where that's concerned. But what I
Yeah.
found to be very interesting, what I learned from her was the power of automation, the power of using tools to be able
Yes.
to give yourself some free time. And so I do my schedule a week in advance,
Okay.
sometimes even longer. I
Mhm.
put different things on the schedule, different time frames on the schedule where I'm going to be working on different things. You
Mhm.
know, that hopefully there is, some of those kinds of projects on. I'm still in school, so I need time to do some school work. I literally
Right. Right.
finished up a report this morning, turned that in.
Yes,
But
you did.
I mean,
Yeah.
I,
On
I
a
have to
Sunday,
schedule
man.
those. Yeah, man, I have to
Yeah.
schedule those things out
Yeah.
and recognizing that, man, if you allow it, uh, those random calls and messages and all that stuff will just
Yeah.
completely take over the whole day. And before
Mhm.
you know it, you've got a
Mhm.
to-do list and you've added to the to-do list, but you haven't actually taken anything off. And you've worked the
Yeah.
entire day. And it's not
Yeah.
for the sake of like being lazy. We're talking about people who are trying to be
Yeah.
productive. So
Right.
I
Right. Right.
recognize the value of guarding those time frames. And so
Absolutely.
yeah, but I will also tell you the flip side. I have sent that Calendly site to several people who have been offended, like
Really?
genuinely offended that I would ask them to book a time on my calendar.
You
And and
know.
and, and I'm
Oh,
gonna be
go ahead. Go
honest.
ahead.
I'm,
Oh
I'm,
man.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna be honest with you. I was a little taken aback at first,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I'm in a space right now where I'm like, if you're offended by that, fam, I got no hate. I got no,
Yep.
but we're just gonna keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna do is
Yeah.
just run my schedule. That's what you're
Yeah.
not gonna do.
That is
Yeah.
absolutely. If anything, for me, um, I would try to. There's a humility piece. I know for
Right.
me when somebody, because especially when you know that you can do it, and then they say, "Let me just send you my link." No, let me send you my link.
Yeah. No.
But
And
the
and,
point
and
is, it's
no,
still
no.
gonna
I,
get
I
booked.
I couldn't agree with you
You
more
know?
because but I know what my thing has always been. If you want me to book it on yours,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to do is have 20 emails or messages or text messages back
Mm.
and forth saying, well, what about this time? Well, what about this time? Well, what
Yeah.
about this time? No, no,
Yeah.
no. Send me your site. I
Yeah.
know when I'm free. I'll
Right.
book the time and then it'll drop it on both of our calendars and we're done.
Right. That's it.
Or come to my site and you pick
And
a
then just
time
do
that
it.
you're free that's
Yeah.
available on my calendar and we're done.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I know that's definitely a different space, but I don't have an
Mhm.
assistant, right?
Right.
I don't have a
That's why we use
secretary. The,
tools like Calendly, because then we would just be so I'm watching West Wing right now, and
yeah,
so we would
yeah,
be calling out Donna,
yeah,
Margaret,
yeah,
we would be
yeah.
calling out the assistants, right? And so
That's real, man.
yeah.
That's real. That's
Yeah,
real.
yeah. I
So
hope, I hope
yeah.
I didn't offend anybody. I'll just shout it out like two,
Uh
uh, there were characters in the show. So,
look. There are characters in the show. Leave it there.
so
Leave it there. Leave it there.
but yeah. So you know what, man? So let's talk about automation for a little bit, because
Sure,
I think
sure.
that's one of the things that I realized I do for work. I
Hmm.
try to, and I think that's why I enjoy testing out different things, different tools. Some of us can succumb to the shiny object syndrome because of that, right? But at the same time, I do it with ideas. Love automating and trying to streamline a way to make all of this stuff that seems cloudy for people very clear to get to an end goal to produce
Right,
a result, right? So, for
right.
instance, like right now, I'm using HoneyBook, which is amazing.
There it is.
Dubsado is another one, right?
Yeah.
But it gets the people to before even booking the time, they or like for the first call,
Right.
they already know the price list, they already
Hmm.
know what's offered, they have the
Hmm.
specific brochure that's tailored to what they could be interested in, all of that,
Exactly.
so that when we have the first call, I've already in a sense groomed them for, okay, let's talk about now the budget of
what you want
what you actually want.
exactly.
Because
You can have a more meaningful conversation
yeah,
because you're not
yeah,
actually feeling anything out at that point.
right,
So
right.
it definitely is better,
It
and I
qualifies
know
them before even the first call and just saves you time.
and I know that I need to put some more work into some of those qualifying questions that I have
Yeah.
on my side as well. But yeah, that's absolutely correct. And so, especially for small business entrepreneurs, you're starting things up.
Hmm, hmm.
You've got to guard your schedule.
Yes.
You're only one person, and I don't care what anybody says. Regardless of whether you're making any money or not, it can be very busy
Yeah.
running a business.
Yeah.
Even a business that's not making money is just
Absolutely. And
really,
and
really busy.
and you can get stuck doing the stuff that should be automated.
Yes.
So you get
You could really literally be, yeah, that's absolutely true.
mhm, mhm.
Sending out invoices, putting together quotations and proposals.
Yeah.
All, not to say that you can automate all of that, but there's got to be some components of that stuff that you can, drop in.
Yes.
So absolutely, yeah, you want to use automation where it's appropriate, and where
Mhm.
it works for you. So some
Yeah.
automation will not work. You got to test this stuff out. You got to dip your toe
Yeah.
in the water, get a sense for what works for you based on your work profile,
Mhm.
based on your discipline, based on the way you work,
Yeah.
and then and how things don't work, right? And here's the other piece. um I just see how it all works anyway. But here's the other piece
Love it.
is, you do also have to manage home life, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's a, even on for my schedule, I'm like, oh well, I can just do that, after
Mhm.
6, after the schedule is done. But then it's like,
Mhm.
but the kids really do want to have game night. We're supposed to have
Yeah.
date night tonight. We're supposed to do that. So it's not just from the perspective of, oh, I want to manage my 9 to 5, but
Right. Right.
you've got to guard that evening, right? You got to
I've had
guard those
relationships
weekends.
that have suffered because of that,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you realize, well, who are you dating or courting? Your work.
Your work, your
And
work.
that's really what what it's been, especially over the last couple of years, man. So I see Eric Thomas in the background. He's
Ah,
like right next to your face, right?
yeah,
So
I see him. I see him. That's my
so
that's my
so
that's my dude, man.
listen, so let's talk about this journey, right? I remember writing in a book. Oh no, well, it's the reverse. So he's in this at this book signing, down here in Miami, and
Mm,
at one point I would have authors write one word that just I guess either resonated with them, what brought them to where they are, just like just write one word anywhere in the book, any page, it doesn't matter, make it a
right, right,
surprise.
right.
When I'm reading and I see, I was like, oh, and the word that he put in, I think it was the blueprint to success, I think,
Hmm, hmm.
was consistent.
Wow,
Um, let's talk about the
wow.
entrepreneurial journey and just the transition
Yeah,
that you have. In a sense, you've pulled the ripcord, right? From
yeah.
the 9 to 5 and just kind of taken the plunge. What was that like?
So I think so I'm going to come back to that consistent word, but I want to,
Okay.
just to set some things up. There's a lot of people have been asking Kanika and I this question. Man, you guys just made, you took the plunge.
Mm,
And so all the terminology around transitioning from 9 to 5 to entrepreneurial work, or, self-employment, the terminology suggests that it's a rapid thing, as in,
mm,
how long does it take to plunge, right,
yeah.
into a lake, or into the beach, or into a pool? How long does it take to plunge? Maybe 20
Mm.
seconds, maybe 10 seconds.
Depending on
So
how deep,
so
yeah.
so the thinking is, the visualization is,
Mm,
just like you said, you pull the ripcord and you're out
yeah.
of there, right? But the truth of the matter is, I think that we have been preparing for this for the better part of 10 years.
Mm.
When we got pregnant with our first child, my son is 10 now. He'll be 11 this month. But when we
Oh
got
wow, really?
pregnant with him, we one of the things that I always wanted was for one of us to have a business and for one of us to work. That's how I grew up. My parents grew up, raised us that way. My dad is
Gotcha.
self-employed, has his own business for better part of my life, all I could remember was my dad working for himself.
Yeah.
And my mom, being a nurse, she had, the 401k, she had the stable job, she always had work, always could pick up some extra shifts, so said she could actually cover some things.
Can
But
I pause and say that's a great strategy but to know and having that understanding and that agreement from the get-go.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
gonna do.
yeah. No, and the other piece, and I don't want to, belittle this, is she had insurance, which is something that we are, still kind of putting those pieces together right now,
Yeah.
trying to understand this insurance piece. But so when we got pregnant with him, we made the decision, even at early on, like 2 months into the pregnancy, we were like, when she leaves for maternity leave after the baby's born, she's not going back. Now, we never told them that. I'm not advocating this for anybody. You want to be truthful. But we took the entire maternity leave. We took all of it, every dime, every day, everything that they would give, even the extras where they were paying her at 50%. And then we just put in the resignation at the end, right? We milked it for all it's worth, and then we put in the resignation.
Wow.
But even as we were doing that, she was already laying the groundwork for her business. So the business that I currently work for is my wife's business. It's called Composition.
Gotcha.
Yourcomposition.com. And so she does web design. And we always, the tagline underneath Your Composition was web design and media consulting, but we never did anything with media consulting.
Gotcha.
Never did anything with it, but that was the part that I was hoping to bring to the table at some point in time. We just didn't know what point in time.
Okay.
Several different opportunities began to present themselves, even when we were in Africa, to do media work. I'm an IT professional by trade and training.
Yeah.
That's not media work. I know a lot of people conflate the two, but it's
Right.
not. They're two totally different disciplines, two totally different skill sets.
Yeah.
And then my aspiration, where IT was concerned, was to get into leadership. And leadership in technology. Let me say this. I know I'm talking a lot, but I just want to share this.
No. This is why we're doing this.
I want to share this one piece for anybody who's trying to understand, the transition from technician to leader. Here's the things you want to know. And it doesn't matter what discipline you're a part of. Don't care what your vocation is, what your training's in. Think about this for a second. Information technology professionals walk into every situation with an eye toward fixing the problem. It doesn't matter the situation.
Yeah.
They walk into every situation with an eye towards fixing the problem.
Yeah.
So when an IT professional is on your board, if they're a part of your mastermind group, if they're a part of your committee, if they're part of your C-suite, you have someone whose eyes are constantly on fixing the problem. This can be a bad thing in relationships. I'm going to point that out. There are many areas in life.
Problem oriented. Is that a fair?
They're solution oriented and
solution oriented.
What I would say is they do make good leaders if they can make the transition.
Okay.
Because they're generally not people who are looking at excuses. They're looking at ways that we can solve the problem. If not, take advantage of this scenario, even if it's an issue, to elevate and innovate.
So it's like that one quality of what guys versus gals, and it's like, but it's like on steroids.
Yes.
the fix it trait that we have. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So that's just I want to say that as my eye was on transitioning into leadership, and I recognize that leadership was not a skill that I had been trained on. It's just something that was innate in me. Yeah. And so I was easily catapulted to leadership because I would learn the language of business. I'm trying my best to keep this thing concise, but I always tell you and Pierre this, man. If you give a talker the microphone, it's a problem. But
that's okay. I will assertively insert myself.
Good.
We're good.
But no, I wanted to learn the language of business and learn the language specific to whatever industry that I was in, because IT is a partner, it's a support. So if when I was working at NASA, NASA was not a technology company. NASA was a science and exploration organization. And so we had to learn the language of technology relevant to that. When I was working in finance at T. Rowe Price, I needed to learn the language of technology relevant to stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And that's what ended me up on the trade desk, because I was a technician who understood.
So how many languages do you know, bro? Like, start counting them.
Listen, I'm going to say, this might be, you might have to delete this part, but I believe that IT folks have a component. You know how with black folks we say we code switch.
Code switch. Yep. Yep.
because we will talk one, we
Yep.
code switch. All right. So if you know what code switch means, you know what code switch
Right.
means. IT people code switch all the time.
Really?
I can go from the
Huh.
executive suite where I'm speaking in those terminologies,
Yeah.
ROI, right?
Yeah.
In ensuring that we leverage different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
move from there. I can go into the director's office
Mm,
and talk about something very specific, like in the educational realm,
mm,
learning objectives and outcomes that we want to have,
mm.
ensuring that we create these benchmarks and triggers to understand where a student might be going awry.
Yeah.
Moving from that office into the tech suite where we're talking ones and zeros, where we're talking nuts and
Yeah.
bolts, where we're talking processors and RAM and gigabytes and
Uh,
speed and bandwidth and servers and all that stuff. And
wow.
then go into the vendor suite and really nail them to the wall in terms
Uh,
of negotiating the best
Crunch those
rate.
numbers.
You see?
Yeah.
So all of those are different languages, but as an IT leader, that's what you have to do. And I think
Mm.
that that's going to be something we see in emerging society as we come out after
Yeah.
the pandemic is over. You're going to see
Uh,
that those kinds of leaders who are able to transcend and
mhm.
speak those different languages, they're going to be transitioning into some of these leadership positions.
So how did
Um,
you transition? How did you transition from these amazing skill sets, right?
mm,
Um,
mm,
and gifts, because not everybody can. Let's be real, like these are two different things, right? To pulling that ripcord and the
right,
process of just
right,
saying,
right,
okay, this is it, and let's add on top of that the very first challenge, if not the biggest challenge,
right.
to just pulling it and saying, let's fly.
Um, so leaving, I worked at Oakwood as a CIO and worked at Wallace State as CTO, and both of them are higher education institutions. And in both instances, I had media under me,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
media was an area of my direct line, direct
Mhm.
report, and I was working with those teams to ensure different media related projects were on time and delivered in high quality fashion.
Gotcha.
So in both of those instances, I really recognized a true passion and love for media, and began to do some little side projects underneath Kanik's brand for media.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And so I that was one piece. But I also recognized that, especially in the pandemic, as the pandemic had begun, I was working still for Wallace State, and recognized that, man, this is not where I want to be. And so
Mm.
there's got to be those kind of reckoning moments. I had been setting up things, but had never really given myself a date where I would actually make a transition.
Okay.
And I really believe God orchestrated some events to allow for me to really start taking a look around
Yeah.
and saying, man, I actually, and I said this to Pierre before, there was a conversation that he had me to be a part of. And in order to, in preparation for that, he had us to read this thing called the Creative's Call to, the Call to Create, right?
Okay.
And it dealt with, of course, God being the first, creative, if you will,
Yeah.
right? The first entrepreneur who stepped out into
Yeah.
nothing and created something. And he says it right there in the beginning, in the beginning, God created,
Created.
right? So
Right.
that whole thing, that book messed me up.
Hmm.
That book messed me up because I recognized that in my current role, I was climbing a ladder towards something, a goal of mine, but I was not creating anything. And I
Mm.
recognized that there was so much that God had called me to create,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was not fulfilling that. And so it was that realization, along with, of course, this whole scenario that God had created, pandemic included,
Yeah.
where I was like, this is the time, if no other time, this is the time that I need to
Yes.
be able to transition. And exactly, that's exactly what we decided to do as a family. We made that decision together. And
Yeah.
if we crashed and burned, we were like, we're going to crash and burn. But
Yeah.
again, we
Yeah.
had a running head start. There's so many
Yeah.
different things. Having to go to Africa as missionaries meant that we had to kind of clear up our debt, clear up
Mm.
our credit, so
Mhm.
many different things. So coming back from
Yeah.
Africa and now living back in the States meant, we could make some calculated decisions. We don't have car loans. You know what I'm saying? We only thing
Yeah.
we really owe on is the house that we purchased. So a lot of folks look at us and they're like, man, they must be making a boatload. No, we're not.
Mhm.
But our bills are
Yeah.
not expensive, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
that enabled us to make this move and then begin to work for ourselves and, nest egg some stuff away.
Yeah.
But one of the major challenges right off the bat was trying to understand what direction to go.
Okay.
Um, you know,
Pause. Pause. That is that right there. Yes. Okay. So before we go into this major challenge,
right.
I want to back up a little bit.
Come on.
So pulling the ripcord is not overnight.
Right.
Um, you had to uh book the flight.
Yeah, there you go. That's what. That's right. That's right.
Right. You had to, let's just say for the sake of this whole analogy, let's just even say you didn't even book the flight. You saved up to get your own chartered jet.
Agreed. I
That
love
was
that.
time. That took
I
time,
love
right?
that. It took
So
time.
and then you had to book your own flight. You had to go, chart the territory or chart the course, even though you wasn't necessarily sure where you were going per se, but you knew
Right.
that it was going to be in some general direction.
Oh yeah.
For you, it was media, right? For your wife, it was design. Like that was just those, you just knew it was there. So you didn't say it has to be this particular longitude and latitude coordinate in order for us to go. We're just going to go. But before we go, we need the plane. So you spent the years investing, getting the plane, getting the fuel,
Mm-hmm.
flying, and the flight wasn't just overnight. It wasn't
No.
just a red eye.
No.
We're talking about you years of flying and having like a jet fly next to you, connect the hose in order to
Fuel up again.
fuel up, and then one day, as you guys are just orbiting the world, you say, you know what? It's time to land.
Yeah.
But what people don't see, they don't see all that. They just see that you're already in the air.
That's it.
Oh, you had to learn how to fly too. By the way,
My goodness, I didn't even think about that. You're so right. You have to learn how to fly. My God.
Right? And so they only see, okay, you're already in the air, you're jumping out. You had to find a parachute. Like there are all of these things that you had to do before you decided to pull the ripcord. I actually, you might have seen it, David Blaine's Ascension.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
The work, the amount of work. Let me tell you, in ignorance, I thought my man was really just gonna take some balloons and just go
up.
I did not realize how much logistics was involved in that entire process.
So let me interject something here. And
yes, please.
And the reason why we know that is because somebody took time to record the entire backseat. Somebody took time to actually tell the whole story. And this is where I feel like God has been trying to kind of tell me the same thing for a long time. One of my passions is speaking. And even as a CIO, I began to kind of get on these circuits and speak at these different places and events. I've got a couple that I still speak at regularly that are specifically for technology thought leaders. Nice. And so God was saying, you are a storyteller. So speaking is one of the ways that you're going to tell stories. Yeah. And media is one of the ways that you'll tell stories, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, right? Mm-hmm. Enabling other people to tell their story. And so I don't know, a good friend of mine in South Africa, her name is Sanaliso Moyo. She sent me this blurb about this. She was in the media department for the division that I was director of. And so she was like, hey, have you seen this new program out of Walla Walla in the Northwest of the United States? I was like, oh, I haven't. I looked at it. I looked over the classes. Didn't even think anything of it. Began pursuing a MBA and MBA IT, a specific MBA degree for information technology, and ended up quitting because I was like, I'm literally teaching the class. So I was like, this is stupid. I'm CIO already. Everybody in the class is trying to be CIOs. I was like, it's kind of backward. I'd rather have a degree that actually is going to have some impact. So since my undergrad was in IT, I was like, well, what could I find in the media space that would allow me, a degree that's just kind of partnering to have both, right? And again, have that notoriety. And man, that thought came back to my mind. It's like, Sanaliso sent me this thing some time ago. I reached back out to her. She sent it to me again, found the program. It was called Media Ministry at first. It is currently, the current degree program is called Cinema, Religion, and Worldview. And so it is a program for storytellers based on the
Yeah.
concept, the idea that Jesus told stories. Like there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
real, like prodigal son,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? There's no real Samaritan, right? Right?
Right.
Or
Right.
these were stories he told for impact and for purpose. And so
Yeah.
that was like our first version of Hollywood. And
Oh,
he
that's
did it
good.
so well that, we
Yeah.
still tell these stories to this day,
Yeah.
and we still see them. All of us see them, right? When
Yep.
we hear this story of the prodigal son, you see the father,
Yeah.
maybe with a cup of Starbucks on the porch with his newspaper looking out to see, is he coming? Is
Is he
he
gonna?
coming?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so and that whole concept, I was like, this is,
Mm.
yeah, absolutely. So that's the degree program that God walked me into, and then caused me
Mm.
to realize, like, all of these things,
Mm.
they're not disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Media,
Mm-hmm.
public speaking, this
Mm-hmm.
degree program,
Mm-hmm.
you are a storyteller. You've always been a storyteller.
Yeah.
I'm bringing you into this space to be able to tell stories. And so again, that what you're saying, absolutely, just
Yeah.
full circle in terms of that
Isn't
whole
that
David
crazy?
Blaine thing. It's just crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting because, ironically, I'm doing an MBA right now, focusing on healthcare, but
Nice.
it's adding these layers, right? It's adding the
Right.
layers on top of, we talked about the anti-heroes
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
journey, and
Mm-hmm.
me trying to really now be consistent. Eric Thomas, we're trying to be consistent with the anti-hero
Consistent.
clinic piece and, the storytelling, and realizing that when I first started this thing out, man, and let's talk about tapping into the original reason why you even thought about pulling the ripcord. I think that is important. Before we talk about your first major challenge, I realized that the reason why the anti-hero was going to be so important was to do two major things, at least at that time, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's relevant now, to help those who are chronically mentally ill.
Right.
You tell a narrative, a degenerative narrative, shame, to yourself over and over. Eventually, your mind will break down and it will become the very narrative that you're saying to yourself. People go ill
Absolutely.
because of that.
Absolutely.
The other one is incarceration, especially those with a high recidivism rate.
Right.
You always end up back into the same
Yeah.
place, committing the same offenses because, once again, guilt, shame, you just can't. And I think of I think of people like OJ Simpson or George Zimmerman. It's like they had the opportunity to just go free.
Look at that.
And for some reason, they couldn't accept the acquittal or the exoneration, the forgiveness that was given. And so it's like they've continually put themselves in the position of the guilty person, but you no longer have to be guilty, even if you were.
Right.
It's the narrative that we tell ourselves, where we will, in a
narrative.
sense, self-sabotage the second chance, the third chance that we're given.
The 20th chance, right?
Right. So for me, I was like, okay, this is what I think in a very practical, right? We're talking about creating something in a practical way that the anti-hero can be used.
Right.
And so you're talking about the sense of practicality. When did you realize, or what did you think about when you said, okay, media, storytelling, I am going to create blank, or I'm going to make an impact in this capacity with it? What was that for you? And then let's go into the challenge.
One of the
And while you do that, I'm gonna plug in my computer because I forgot to do that for a second.
but I'll wait till you get back.
1 second. Okay.
Yeah, so as I was grappling with the idea, okay, storytelling, that's where God wants me to go. That's the direction He wants me to move in.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting to kind of put together what was the target. For me, it was more or less. I mean, so the concept that I was grappling with was, people. So I'm known for telling stories, but I'm also known for explaining. One of the reasons why I resonated with working in higher ed is because teaching is a natural gift of mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I never wanted to be a teacher, but a lot of the work that I did, even in South Africa, even prior to that, working at the General Conference, was going around and training, right? So not exactly a teacher in a sense, but there's a lot of folk out there. I mean, a lot of folk out there, worldwide, because at the GC, I was literally traveling the globe. that I have actually trained up, and not just from the one, ERP standpoint that I was training them on, but from a broader technology standpoint. So the whole training piece, as I always, the explainer piece is really what I want to say. I always knew
Gotcha.
that explaining things in ways that people could really get at
Mhm.
is something that I was interested in. And so I wasn't sure how exactly that was going to manifest itself. I was like,
Mhm.
how's not really, I wasn't even sure how to brand it or in what
Yeah.
way it should take shape. I'll give you a joke. I was, I was asked to be AY leader at my church. This
Uh-huh.
was years ago. This is before we went to South Africa,
Mhm.
before any of our kids were born. And I was AY leader for 2 years.
Mhm.
And in that time frame, we created a program called AY Live, and it
Okay.
was a live stream program. Yeah, I've been
And how
doing this
long ago
thing.
was this?
This is maybe 2010,
10 years ago.
2000, yeah,
Okay. I just want to.
2009,
We're
2010,
talking
somewhere
about the
there.
charter jet here, right? Before
Right.
pulling the ripcord. Yep.
So we started this program. We called it AY Live.
Uh-huh.
Got the a kernel of the idea from my older brother, who's a pastor in South Florida, and we started it at Miracle because we had the capacity. Because Miracle was known for live streaming,
Yeah.
and Praise Vision and the several components of the puzzle were already there. So we
Mhm.
decided, okay, what if we took that same premise that we do for church service and
Mhm.
do it for our AY service? And what we do is we partner with other churches around the city of Baltimore,
Uh-huh.
bring their youth group in to meet with our youth group, and we would stream this discussion live. And we had guest moderators, and we had a whole
Mhm.
schedule of topics. One month we would be dealing with peer pressure, another month we'd be dealing with sex, another month we'd be dealing with
Uh-huh.
depression and thoughts of suicide. And we'd
Yeah.
always have a very dynamic host, which
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
generally like a youth leader or a pastor from the area. We'd
Okay.
always have a subject matter expert, somebody who was clinically, licensed in the given area that we were going to
Nice.
tackle, because we didn't want to
Yeah.
just speak from without. Then we
Yeah.
always had somebody who was going to be sitting on stage, who was going to be monitoring the chat. Does that sound familiar? So they had a tablet, because we're streaming this thing
Yeah, 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 yeah.
using a platform called Mogulus, which was later purchased by Livestream, or
Okay.
it's called Livestream still to this day, but Livestream
Uh-huh.
has been purchased by Vimeo. So just kind of walking you through the iterations, but
Yeah.
we would stream it on this platform, and then right next to it was a chat, and so people
Mm.
could jump on and chat with us, and that moderator, the chat moderator who was sitting on stage, would interject those conversations in. And
Uh-huh.
the reason why this is innovative, like totally next generation, the reason why
Mm.
it failed, not failed, but the reason why it ended
Mhm.
abruptly was because I did not want to be the host.
Mm.
Several of my team members were like, Kirk, you
Mm.
should host it. Kirk, you should host it. Kirk, you would be phenomenal at hosting it. And I did not want to be the host. I was like, nah, that hosting is not for me. I don't want to be a speaker. Listen to this. I
Uh-huh.
don't want to be a speaker. I don't want to be a host. And so it
Oh, the
ended
irony.
abruptly. And so one of the things that, even as I was trying to grapple with this idea, okay, I want to do
Yeah.
some explainer things. And then God was like, you need to do a show and you need to be the host. I was like, we already went down this road. And
10 years ago.
he gave
Yeah.
me this phrase, how it all works.
Mm.
And that was, I mean, as they say, I mean, that was what, 4, 5, 6 months ago,
Yeah.
and we're now in the middle of season 2, and it's rolling. And again, I'm the
Wow.
host.
Wow.
So I'm sharing
That's
all this
right.
to say, man, listen, it's been when I thought about what it is God was going to actually ask me to do, I
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
But as I look back, probably for the first time right now in this conversation, I'm recognizing that he's been
Yeah.
kind of hinting at this thing for a very long time. and
You
and
know,
I challenge anybody
wow.
who's listening to
That's
think
right.
about those things. That there's gonna be, recurring themes, recurring opportunities. They may present themselves in very different ways,
Yeah.
but God is constantly trying to get you into purpose. And I want to
Yeah.
say that word, purpose. Purpose is something that is not elusive.
It's not.
It's really coming into alignment,
Yeah.
more so than it is an actual a place that you attain or
Mhm.
arrive at.
Mhm.
It's also something that can be chosen, and I
Yeah.
really want people to understand that as well. You can choose purpose, and you can not choose purpose,
You
and
know what? That is that. So I'm actually doing a series right now. Learn your story, live your purpose.
oof, there it
And this
is.
this idea of
There it is.
you don't find your calling. Oftentimes we try to synonymize calling with
With
purpose.
purpose.
No, calling gets you, like you said, aligned to with
Yeah.
the purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Calling is always going to find you.
Yeah.
That's why it's called a calling. It's the initiator. You are the one that receives the calling. So for us to always try to search and look for it, why?
Yeah.
God's going to do it. And here's the crazy thing, because he said 10 years ago this happened. I truly believe that particularly those of us that know our one or two, maybe three things that are just placed on our hearts, it doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
Even after a decade, it
Yeah.
will come back
Come.
around.
There
He
it
will
is.
wait. He will wait and say, okay, now that you got all that off your chest, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
You know, think about Jonah. That's his classic narrative where, he goes through his goes through the whole situation, and God is like, okay, you ready to go to Nineveh now? Like,
Wow.
if the calling is the same,
It's the same.
yeah. So
It's the same.
let's try this out, Kirk. I'm going to see if we can share the screen, and let's go ahead and talk about name a challenge. Name a
Sure.
challenge that you have right now. Let's see. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Cool. I think this is going to be under our Zoom strategy sessions, even though we're not using Zoom, but that's okay. We're just going to work it out. And hopefully this will work out. So let's talk about okay, this is how we're going to do it. Talk about the first challenge, which direction to go. That can stop a lot of people.
Mhm.
They pull the ripcord, or maybe they're about to, and they say, wait, where am I going to land? What is David Blaine had no idea where exactly he was, but there's supposed to be some ravine or something, something he was supposed
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that little spot right there. And they're like, yeah, in that general area, right? So some of us, because we don't know exactly what the destination is, like I'm talking about to the degree, the
Right.
longitude,
No. Yeah.
degree,
Yeah.
we're just like, yeah, I'm good. Let's just let
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
plane circle again.
Let me add one piece here just as we get ready to dive into that part.
Yeah.
Don't conflate the two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The arriving at the decision
Yeah.
to make the leap is a different process than actually knowing where you're leaping to.
Yes.
So there may be very
Yes.
different motivations, very different circumstances, very different points of your story
Right.
that lead you to actually making the leap.
Right.
And then also very different pieces that are going to help you to understand the direction that you're leaping in.
Yes.
So you don't conflate the two. There are those pieces out there, and yeah. Let's dive in here, man.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how this is gonna go. This is cool.
Yeah, man.
But yeah. The issue of direction was one thing. But the major, I think one of the things that and a lot of people don't even want to talk about this piece of the puzzle is now that you have been have tasted a measure, a modicum of success. I don't want to call it success in the traditional sense of success, because some people just expect that to look like millions and millions of dollars, and that's not where I'm at. But once you've begun to see that the world is responding to what you're putting out, and you're now saying, I need to scale. Okay. I need to build out capacity to be able to respond to the requests and to the demand that the market is placing on you, or on me, I should say. And so even from a perspective of, okay, I do these live streams for large scale companies and entities that want to do virtual conferences and all this stuff. But I'm just one person. And sometimes I have 1, 2, 3 overlapping, projects. Sometimes I take them and then I graft my wife in.
Right.
But other times I just absolutely have to say no. And so I'm looking at that as, am I so some people would say, okay, you don't want to scale too quickly because of course you don't want to deal with a problem of having, this support staff,
right.
And not have the work to give them. But then are we being faithful, right? So at what point do you say, okay, God, you're going to fill my cup and I need to get the saucer, right? So that as the overflow comes on there, somebody else can be blessed as well.
So Kurt, in between the direction of where to go and scaling, is
Mm-hmm.
there something that and let's say for you, what was in between there? Because for a lot of us, right,
Mm-hmm.
we end up stopping here,
Yeah.
put a stop sign here,
Ah,
right?
nice, nice.
This is like okay, oh my goodness, I'm not sure what to do next, so I'm not going to go. I'm going to wait until things become more clear. Oftentimes we look for, what are some of the things that we do?
So, I mean,
For those of us that are, that are Christian or
oh yeah,
spiritual,
we
we pray,
pray.
we try to
We
seek some sort of clarity,
yeah.
we research,
I'm gonna be
we
honest with you.
read.
All of the above
Mhm.
is a lot of us doing some hand wringing and giving ourselves a reason to stand still.
Mm.
And what God really, I listen, I can only give you my experience, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
whether it resonates with somebody out there or it doesn't, but all just like you see, you accurately put a stop sign there, and the truth of the matter is we're just giving ourselves excuses to stand still.
Yeah.
What God is looking for us to do is to step, right? To the
Mhm.
water, the Jordan didn't part for Joshua until they stepped in, right? And they
Yeah.
didn't just
Yeah.
step in; they had to go waist deep. They were holding the ark up.
Right. Right.
they
Right.
they had to really go in, and then it parted for them. And
So what did you do? What did you do in order
there
to get
there's a there's
from
a
a
lot. Go ahead.
from the direction stage to the do? And let's probably talk about that. Now, I have to be so careful. If my hand hits the tablet, bruh, it just goes into this expose.
Oh wow,
Yeah, it's so weird. So
wow,
from
wow.
direction to do,
This
what did you have to come to grips with?
I had to come to grip. So I also have a touch of OCD. I'm a
Okay.
planner's planner.
Hmm.
I'm a carpenter's son, so we measure twice, cut once.
Uh-huh.
So I'm saying all that to say I'm a very precautious person by nature. So
So on the disc assessment, are you more the C person?
absolutely,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. So even from the perspective of actually quote unquote pulling the ripcord, this
Right.
is not a natural space for me. This is not a
Okay.
space that I exist in. But what I had to learn, and I think what God has been teaching me the entire time is
Mhm.
that yeah, take a step. Put a foot in front of the other. So
Mhm.
you know what the name of the show is. You don't have anybody to be on the show. Take one step.
Okay.
Buy the domain. So
Ah,
right,
okay.
okay. So
Okay.
what are
So
the small steps that you can do?
so for you, the small steps, because for some of us, we do the domains, we do the business cards, and we still,
Well, so what helped
what
me?
builds it up? Yeah, what helps you?
What helped me was committing to two shows.
Okay.
Not one show. I want you to follow me here.
Okay.
I committed to two shows, and what that did is I had to invite two sets of guests for two shows,
Ah,
right? Then
okay.
my and here's the other thing that I did.
Hmm.
I made sure that on the first show
Uh-huh.
I showed the flyer for the second show.
So there is a level of accountability
Yeah.
because now people are going to be expecting. Yeah.
Right.
Do you know that as I just talked about this like 2 days ago, like because when you share, it also indirectly creates this
Yeah.
environment of,
Right.
okay, that's great. When's the next one?
Right.
So you've actually put yourself out there, but okay, I like this. So you've actually committed to doing two shows first. You
Mm-hmm.
purchased a domain.
Mm-hmm.
You found the platform. I was
Right.
talking with Maxwood yesterday. We talked about the three things that we need, and his three was be true to yourself, be balanced, and what was his third one? And start. Just do. Just
Start.
get going. And my three, picking up from where he left off, was find the platform, share your work, and I can't remember the third one, but the point is, yeah, figure out where you want to play. That's strategy, right? Figure out
Right.
where the playing field is, and then you actually have to produce something that other people are going to see.
Yeah.
I love saying that just because you write in a journal doesn't make you a writer.
That's true.
Makes you somebody who just writes in a diary.
In a diary.
Right. But unless you publish those things, you're not a writer per se. just somebody who,
It's everything you're man. I could not agree with you more, man. I mean, at the end of the day, the other thing that I would add here is I I made sure I found the spaces
okay,
in what I was doing
okay,
that I had full control over. And
okay.
I made sure that
Talk
in
about
those
that.
specific spaces, I pushed to the nth degree.
Okay. So when you
So
say push to the nth degree,
I made sure. So one of
I
the
want
reasons
to say this. I want to say this because yesterday we talked about leaning into the gift.
that's
So is that
that's perfect.
I'm gonna tie that?
That's
Okay.
perfect. That's
Okay.
perfect
So
because
you found out what you were naturally capable of doing,
yeah,
and then you just said, "I'm going to exhaust that."
yeah. I know I'm a
Okay.
talker, so I was like, okay, I'm going to play on the fact that I'm a talker. Number one, and so that was going to be a component of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I know that how to do broadcast. That's something that I
Mm.
didn't need to be trained in. I broadcasted. I mean, I used to run alumni weekend and graduation at Oakwood University for years. These
Okay.
are
Okay.
huge, massive events. So we're talking multiple cameras. Anyway, so running the broadcast
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to be an issue. But so now I was saying, so what can I do in the broadcast realm that would allow my show to stand out? Quite literally, everybody that has been on my show has
Yeah.
said I've never seen anything run like this
Wow. Wow.
because
Yeah.
I'm trying to push. And even as people will quote unquote give me these compliments,
Yeah.
they don't know I am still pushing. I'm not quite where I would want it to be yet. I'm
Gotcha.
still pushing to the nth degree. So
Gotcha.
in those spaces that I knew I had creative control over,
Mm-hmm.
I made sure that I held myself to a higher standard than I would have held myself in any other instance.
Gotcha.
And that's actually in my, well, not even opinion, for an absolute fact, those are the places that have opened doors for me to be able to do some of what I do for myself for other
Yeah.
people for pay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
which again allowed for me to now say, oh, this is what I'll be doing. So
Mm.
the show really just kind of led me into this other space,
And what's that space?
being able to do this media thing for other people.
Because it's the platform, right? The
There it
platform
is.
to do that. Okay, so Kurt, let's transition because man, we have so much meat in this conversation.
I know,
I'm
man. I
gonna do
know.
my best to try to try to recap some of it, but I'm not gonna do that right now. What I want to do is let's talk about something that you're currently working through right now, a current challenge, and let's see if we can scribble our way through this and ideate and maybe come up with something new, or maybe it's just us talking about a process that's already complete and
No,
just
no,
illustrating that.
no. There's multiple challenges. There's I mean, so this is. I just want to make sure I highlight some. So a couple of main challenges, a couple of recurring challenges is, of course, I mentioned this earlier, health insurance, and some of the things that go along with having full time employment.
Yeah.
Some of those things that some of us even may take for granted. Understanding some of those pieces. Okay, that's one part. Then
Right.
understanding and working on your basically your accounting, right? How do you set up your accounting? How do you do your invoicing? How do
Yeah.
you account for business expense and personal expense? How do you pay
Hmm.
yourself, right?
Hmm.
How do you do your taxes? These are all gray area items and items that I have been kind of working towards. I'm saying these not for us to really like dive into them.
Oh, because we're not.
I
I
want
that ain't. I ain't
I
got
want
no
no
strategy.
I want to share with folks that it is
Yeah.
not a bed of roses. There are
Yeah.
major things that have still yet to be kind of figured out. But
And quite frankly, Kirk, what I've done, at least for the accounting pieces, I hire somebody.
yeah. No, I
But
mean
there's value in knowing a lot of that for yourself.
there it is. And
There is.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the point I want to. That's the area that I want to hone in on is
Mhm.
when do you scale? When do
Okay.
you understand that this is not a piece for you to do? Right?
Okay.
There's so many things that you can do, but what must you do?
Would you say when to skate? Would you say that would you say that that's a current challenge right now? that you're
Yeah,
facing?
that
Okay.
is a challenge that I am currently
Okay.
looking at. Okay, so
So let's
yeah, how do you?
let me
So
get this.
there's 10 different people who want you to do live streams on the third weekend in November. You can't say yes to all 10,
Yeah.
but you can't hire 9 more people because it's
Mm,
only one weekend. How do you
yeah.
scale? How do you scale? Do you just say no to the business? Do you get a couple of them to reschedule? How do you scale? What are some of the things you can do to scale? And then and then
So
and then
so
and,
right
and
now, so right now, would you say that your challenge right now is that you have too many requests?
I have requests that are around the same time. I wouldn't say that they're too many
Okay.
because if they
Okay.
were spread out, I'd be like, okay, hallelujah, I've got work for the next 6 months.
God, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
if
yeah,
so,
yeah.
I've got a lot of requests that for
Okay.
November and in early
Gotcha.
December, but nothing for January. So
Gotcha.
then it's like, okay, so if I do something now, then will I be, what I'm saying? I'll have this person who is now looking to me like, okay, so when's the next job? And I don't have one.
Right, right, right. So they're not, so they're requests, but they're not spread out.
No, they're not.
Okay. So
Everybody
what would be, everybody's clamoring for like the same date,
for
so to
same
speak?
dates, for the same time frame, and so
Okay.
you plan that thing out. I'm a project manager. You put your Gantt chart together. You recognize I need about 2 weeks
I
lead
guess
time
it's
to
like
get these
a,
these things together. No,
yeah.
there's no way that I'm going to be able to realistically put together all these packages for all these different people, even if I had somebody to work the event.
So there's a,
So
let's call it a bottleneck. So you got these requests, and at some point they're like bottlenecking
mm-hmm,
on very particular dates.
mm-hmm,
So what have you done so far? And so is it because, yeah, you're right. Scaling means that you'll then have different people,
mm-hmm,
different, like right now we're using RTMP, right? To
mm-hmm,
to stream everything out. So you'd
mm-hmm.
have multiple stream
Streams.
keys and
Yep.
all kind of. What were some of the ideas that you had in trying to uh loosen or widen the funnel so that it no longer backs up? What are some of the things that you're thinking of doing?
So one of the ideas of course is just to there are other people who have similar skill sets who do what I do,
Mhm.
and so at least initially one of the ideas was, okay, let me, if I can't get them to reschedule, if I can't absolutely cannot take them on myself, then I can at least refer them to someone else. And
Okay.
and so but that has backfired in that sometimes that person does not
Mm,
have the same work ethic, same quality that the person came to me for. So
yeah.
so then it's like, well, I don't want to necessarily do that.
Yeah.
But one of the things I've found to
Like
be, yeah,
quality
somewhat
assurance.
successful is
Mhm.
if I keep it under my brand,
Okay.
right? If I keep it under my brand and I
Uh-huh.
say, composition is going to take care of this event, but I then bring
Mm.
someone else under my umbrella to actually do the event, but make sure that they are working according to my standard.
Gotcha.
That's one of the things that I found to be more successful. And again, it's one of those questions where it's like, is my effort better served this way?
Mm. What would you call that? Would you call that a? Because I mean, technically, the referral could be considered a. No, no, no. Actually, no. Referral would be separate. But would you consider this a subcontract?
It's a subcontract because,
But it's
well,
it's a
well,
branded subcontract, right? Because
it's
it's like
yeah,
you
it's
kind
a
of
subcontract to an extent because this other person is literally working under me,
right.
not necessarily working for themselves. So it's a uh, I don't know. It's like you've just expanded temporarily to meet
Yeah.
this one need, and then you will go back. So a lot of the times
Gotcha.
that concept is how I broach it with the person, saying, "Hey, look,
Mm.
I don't have a lot of this, but I just have this one issue. Can you come alongside and we'll work this event together? But I'll stay prime on it, and we'll make sure you get paid."
What has been the challenges with a branded subcontract? Time obviously is definitely one because you're trying to train them and to understand how it needs to be done for your brand.
the
Um,
the brand that I think the challenge with the branded subcontract is it still takes, because there are, so I'm some of the events I'm doing myself,
mhm.
and then some of the events I bring someone in to do,
Okay,
but I'm still involved in both.
gotcha.
So the challenge is I'm still split. So now the question becomes, do I bring people in to work all the events and then I sit as the the overarching umbrella,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
and of course maintain some involvement, but not necessarily be the hands-on producer for an event. So
Yeah.
there's some challenges there, and then of
Yeah.
course the whole idea of expanding and hiring somebody. Don't know if I want to do that.
Right.
So you almost want to be like, hey man, you're gonna need to get your own thing started, and then I will subcontract with your business.
Mm,
And so there's some challenges to that as well, but some people see the merit of it, and
yeah.
they recognize some things there. But one of the things I have found to be successful is bringing in some of these younger guys, right? So I am in a college town. There's
Okay.
three major universities here in Huntsville: UAH, Alabama A&M, and of course Oakwood University.
Uh-huh.
So I've picked up two students from the communications department
Mhm.
from Oakwood who are
Would you call them
working.
interns?
I would not, because I'm not going to give them a grade, but I'm giving them practical
Gotcha.
hands-on experience. I just didn't even want to do the paperwork with the university to be able to call it an internship.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they are getting that practical hands-on experience, and I don't have the experience is what I'm paying them. Does that
So
make
would
sense?
that be what would you call those? Just volunteers?
They're volunteers essentially,
Okay.
or apprentice, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Okay.
Apprentice is probably more accurate, because I am
Okay.
teaching them. I am investing in them. I'm taking time
Gotcha.
out that I would otherwise not do to ensure that they understand how this whole thing works. And
Okay.
again, we come back to that same phrase, because this is the piece that one of the reasons why I never
Mm,
really wanted to get into the classroom is because I felt like the classroom was a space where you explain the theory, but you never really gave them anything practical.
yeah.
And so that works for some people. I'm not knocking it. If you're a theory person, do
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a practical person. And so having,
Gotcha.
giving people a practical space where they can actually learn while doing
Right.
is much more my thing.
So what has been the most effective way to so far for you make sure that you're actually, I guess this would be like what would we call it? These would be like your streams. But here is where the bottleneck is happening. So
Mm-hmm.
I got to put a like a whole bunch of these are your requests, like oh my gosh, and
Yeah,
then
they're coming
eventually,
fast and furious.
yeah, and so what's happening is you're saying that has the volunteer or has the apprenticeship model been the most effective way of handling scaling?
Yes. Why is
Okay.
that? Because people who are my peers in the industry, who have similar skill sets, who may not necessarily just do it
Mhm.
my way, right? They have their own way of doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
Um, they are not teachable, right? They're not going to do it my way. They are always going to do it their way, and that's fine. That's why they're my peer. They're not
Yeah.
my subordinate. They're not my employee. They're my peer,
Yeah.
and I've learned from them. They've learned from me. There's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody's coming to composition for the
Yeah.
composition secret sauce, I need to ensure that the composition secret sauce is what they get. With the apprentice model, I can ensure that's what they get, because these younger, more impressionable, more malleable minds
Mm,
are
mhm.
willing to actually listen to what I have to say.
So here's my question for you though.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how many, right? Because
That's
this is now
that's the
where your
question.
scaling comes into this is the scaling question.
That's the
How
question.
many apprentices um, do you take on where you still have the same problem again,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you can
Of
only
having
take
to,
on a
yeah,
few,
yeah.
and then you would have to like bring on somebody to train more apprentices, but then that person would, need to be trained so that you can train them. So I'm thinking about this. I think this whole thing would probably be, and I wrote it before, but if I could just get this life together right here, quality assurance, would you
Okay.
say?
QA, yeah.
Is that a QA situation?
It is, especially in terms of delivering the product to the end user, to the client. Absolutely, quality assurance. Absolutely.
So how do we address your quality assurance issue? Because if we
I
have this,
I
if we,
I want to. No, go ahead. Go ahead. If we
so
have.
if we have this funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got all of these people that are coming in with these requests, and you can't manage all of these people, right?
Right.
all of these requests, because they're all happening at the same exact time,
Right.
there's probably another way to do it, right? You just create, if I can just actually move this across here, you create another funnel, right?
Oh,
Create a whole different funnel so that that's one solution, right? So
yeah.
you can handle, but you've said that in order to do that, it's still going to take a whole nother set of resources, right? You're going to need people, you're going to need equipment, right? You're going to
Yeah.
need all of these things in order for this to happen. And so let's say we're not trying to do this, you know. I'm getting real fancy now. Let's change the colors.
Ah.
You want to stick with one funnel. How do you open up the bottleneck with the multiple apprentices? What do you do from a Q&A standpoint? What do you think we should do from a Q&A standpoint to open this up? That way you don't have to have extra funnels. You can still, because I've heard something that you said, you need to be the person. You need to be the person who's training, right? And that's, nothing's wrong with that.
Right.
Can you be, especially because of the calling that you do have, can you be, or are you supposed to be, the trainer and the host and the IT innovation? I'm just making up some words now. Do you like the person who's going to bring in these new the new technology,
push the envelope? Yes.
Right. First of all, do you think that you can be all, both the trainer and the host and the IT, or is there going to be a shift where you're going to say, okay, maybe I host, but it's in a different capacity because now my responsibility is going to train.
See, everything you're saying, these are the questions.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have an answer, but I do feel like though you're right on target in terms of what I'm looking at, what I'm staring down the barrel of.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, but yeah, one of the truth, I still believe I definitely want to be the host, because that brings me through some of the other pieces in terms of speaking and everything else. That's where I'm pushing in that area. But in terms of some of the things that people are coming for, with relation to live streaming specifically, and virtual events and broadcast engineering, that may be an area where I need to be just trainer and not necessarily the hands-on person that's actually working the event. Gotcha. And so maybe that's where it is. But again, all of that is assuming that this scenario of the bottleneck and the multiple requests continues.
Right.
We see.
Right.
Because if it doesn't continue, there's really no need to have any additional people coming through. I can work the events that we get, and I can continue doing these other pieces. And so there's which
is the dilemma of business, right?
You got the dilemma. Yeah,
to bring in the people, but then also manage the actual clients that you just brought on. And would you say that you're in a place right now where sustainable that requests are sustainable? Where it's like, we're good. There's enough for us to actually handle the Q&A piece.
Requests are sustainable, I think, even going into the 2021 for me.
Okay.
For me.
Okay.
But for what I'm staring down the barrel of for November and early December, very much going to need some assistance. And maybe that's what I do, take it a month at a time, say, hey guys, I'm willing to train. I'm willing to, put you on these projects as long as I have projects. Right. And so there's no commitment of a long-term, engagement, except for maybe say one person.
Okay.
I could see bringing in one person. One person would I think one person would in terms of like an overarching person who I can work alongside. And even if there's just events for the two of us to work together, it's still a better scenario than me working them by myself. So maybe that's what it is. And again, a lot of this, and I know this is the purpose, but a lot of this is just thinking out loud.
Right.
Haven't necessarily made any kind of decision yet. I have one person that I am training,
Okay.
and he has been phenomenal.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
and has absolutely increased my capacity to say yes to a couple of things.
Okay.
Kanik is also trained and can run, an event, given that everything has been explained and set up for her. So,
Gotcha.
there's some capacity there as well. But then again, she still has websites to build and she's got clients
Right.
to meet. And
Right. Right.
so
Right.
that's
Mm,
that's not her side of the business. So she can
gotcha.
help out in a pinch, but it shouldn't be something that I'm like, okay, we have
Mm,
three people now. No, we really have myself
yeah.
and the apprentice I'm training, and that's pretty much it.
Mm.
Um,
So would you say that if you can put these in buckets, Q&A training is definitely one thing. The requests, I probably shouldn't. I might have put it in the wrong. Hosting is probably the streaming, right?
well,
Um,
hosting is doing the show and
yeah,
doing some, speaking and different things like that.
and I think the request part would be I guess it's the business part. Would you say, or
Yeah,
like you
absolutely. That's
just
the stream. That's the
managing?
the live streaming part.
Okay,
Being able to do to broadcast and do back end support, production support for different people's events.
okay,
Yeah, we have a number of packages that we sell to people,
gotcha. So,
and
so
that has
things
been
like
wildly popular.
this has been
That has been
okay,
wildly popular. Yes.
which makes sense because I mean, if you don't have that, then the
Yeah.
requests are going to dry up,
Yeah.
right?
That. But again,
Mm,
my show is the impetus for the. You know what I'm saying? So
okay.
there's a constant, and let me say it differently. There's a consistent
Mm,
reminder
hmm,
to anyone who wants to watch every Monday at 5:30
hmm.
that Kirk has this show, and look at how he does his show.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha,
let's get him to do our event, right?
gotcha.
That's the fun. That's the loop right there. So
Hmm.
if you stop doing the show, stop hosting, you don't have
The
that
requests dry up,
consistent
right?
reminder. And yeah, and then of course on the show I'm constantly
Mm,
having guests,
yeah.
and those guests are like, "What's this? I need you to do some stuff for me." So
Mm.
that's again, it's that kind of scenario that has been really really successful.
Okay. Well, this is definitely a complex dilemma. I will say this, obviously we're not going to solve all of this in one shot, but it made it clear for me to understand that training is definitely something that, and it was probably already clear for you, but
Mhm.
going through this process now gets me on the same page with you that there's production, there is the live streaming happening, but now you have this new activity.
Mhm.
I love using the business model canvas, where it talks about key activities,
Right.
and so training is now going to be one of your
One of those
key
key.
activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think one of the challenges though with the training is that it has to be from you, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is it necessarily, you know I don't know why I keep doing this skate thing. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. I don't think it has to be you. I think that you just need something to actually, because we're talking about tools earlier. You just need something
Yeah.
to scale your training. So for instance, a good example would be,
That's
and I'm,
good.
and I'm gonna zoom out so that we can actually talk closer about this. So here's a good example,
It's
right?
good. Yeah.
Um, I remember the not the day, but the year. I think I can't even remember the year, but the time. This one time that I started flying. This is when I used to fly a lot,
Mhm.
and realized there is no longer a live person doing all of the onboarding, the flight attendant with the. And I actually like the personable, just like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just videos now. They scale that out. They
Wow.
used one video to tell you about the nearest exit, to tell you about the vest under your seat, to tell you about putting on your mask first before, putting on anyone else's. And
Nice.
even though it has lost its I guess personable touch, did it really? Because the people that did it anyway, you can tell a lot of them are just kind of going through the motions, unless they were actually excited, like on Southwest Airlines, like that's their brand. Their brand is to do it that way.
Mhm.
But if that's not your brand, and I don't think that that's part of really what your brand is,
Not really,
then
no.
I would say find an automated way of doing it. So, for instance, I'll give you a great example. It's not called. Okay, we're gonna work on this together just in the next few minutes. I think there's one called Biz Manuals.
Hmm.
That's probably the not the best one, but it's like a policy manager software. There are other ones too. So Biz Manuals is
Mm-hmm.
BIZMANUALZ, bizmanuals.com. There are other ones too. If I can just give me 1 second, and then I then
Sure.
I will
Sure.
I will find it for you. Policy man, like there are tools that I started using for this one particular client, and they never took on to it, but man, what is it called? What is it called? What is it called? Let's see if we can look this up. Manual.
Oh,
Um,
this is really good, really helpful. I never considered that aspect of the that aspect could be then automated is the term I'm really looking for. Automated
yeah.
by creating some maybe even videos to
Yes.
walk people through what it is I would normally have trained them in real life or in person.
Yeah. Yeah. But there are other ones
That
too,
that
man.
that accomplishes that still allows me to be engaged and involved because I know what I put in the video, and so I as long as they really paid
Exactly.
attention, I know what they should be able to do, given that they've gone through that part of the training. That's really good.
See here. Man, it's not pulling up for me, Kirk. It's not pulling up for me. But there are and there I did this. Why can't I find it? There are like they're not digital handbooks. They're like uh what do they call like scale? Let's just put in some keywords here. Scalable digital handbook policy business. Let's see what comes up.
Right.
Um, List book. There probably are some newer ones too. That's probably why. This is like maybe a year or two ago when I was
I
doing
see.
this.
I see.
So but anyway, so that could be one option, right? Where you actually create. So let's go back here. Let's go back here and where are you?
All right. Oh, okay.
There you are. Oh wait, hold on. There you go. Where you use man, there's a specific term, but for now we're just gonna put an online policy. It hurts my soul that I'm not using the right terminology, but whatever. Online policy handbook. This is something that you actually will put like your cultural the company's culture, everything would
Mm-hmm.
be in this, and you can do it in modules and trainings. Like you literally can make them go through particular trainings, and if they miss the mark, they have to keep going through
Keep
it.
going
That
through
way
it.
you have something that's working on your behalf
Right.
while you can still do the production and the streaming. Because for you, those are like the top two things. Those are the most important, right?
It's true.
If there's no production, there's no requests.
No. Yeah.
And if there's no streaming, there's no brand awareness for people to want to use
It,
you for the production, right? So those two
exactly.
are like the top two. So I would suggest that. I would suggest an online policy handbook. Man, it sucks that I can't remember the name, but
Yeah, man. That
it,
but what you trust me, what you've shared here already, I'm making note because this is good. This is good. I don't I mean, time will tell, but this is
yes,
good. This is definitely a step in the right direction. Just talking through the whole process just
yeah.
really has been phenomenal. In
Procedure manuals.
is it procedure?
Yes. Put in procedure manuals, and you should come up with like software, or maybe you should put like procedure manual software, and you should see like biz manuals. You should see, or maybe even Capterra.
Mm-hmm.
So Capterra gives you the way we do is one. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we're cooking. So way we do is one. And even if you put in like way we do, which is .com, but if you put in like way we do versus,
Yeah.
you can start to see alternatives and like g2.com. You'll start to see some of these other ones. And these are ones that I've actually looked at. That Trainual is one. Okay, Trainual is actually really good. As a matter of fact, Trainual was on Gary V's, one of his like old
Oh, really?
daily digital deep dive things. Like their CEO was actually on there a few years back. So Trainual is another good one. So online policy handbook. I think we call these procedural. So I'm going to put here procedural manuals, and Trainual is a great example,
Nice.
because then now you can start comparing. Trainual is one, Biz Manuals is another one. Okay, so now what we're looking at is, we're not looking at you trying to scale the business. We're looking at you just scaling one part of it.
Yes.
Okay, so we're scaling one part of the business, and by that, for those of you that are still watching, don't worry, we're almost done. Scaling one part is meaning that we are automating
Automating it.
with technology.
That's good.
Listen, guys, that's what this boils down to nowadays. When we're talking about scaling, we're not talking about going big, and nope. What we're really talking about is simply doing something in an automated fashion with a piece of technology.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that, I mean, because we're in the land of tech. Because here's the thing, right? And you agree with this, Kirk. If you can't scale with tech, you have to scale with people.
That's true.
And to scale with people, you need a lot of money,
A lot of money.
because that is
And
assuring a lot of things.
consistent stream of
Right.
funding. Yes.
Right. Because you talk about the complexities of taxes and accounting and insurance. Woo. Now you got all these people.
Woo.
You got to make sure that you got enough work coming in
to be able to warrant that overhead.
Right. Versus just a simple subscription to a piece of technology or a software, some SaaS product that you're able to just a couple $100 a month or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's a free trial. So Kirk, this was great, man.
This has been phenomenal.
It took us a while to get there, but I'm glad we got there.
Oh yeah, no, trust me. This is I've got a good page of notes here, because I'm like, man, that's good.
Good stuff. Any last words? I know that we didn't really get to talk about the consistent piece, but it was in there. We interwove some of these, concepts that we wanted to talk about. So what would you say to somebody who is looking right now to scale, or they have let's probably broaden it out a little bit. They have a particular challenge that's preventing them from either pulling the ripcord, or they've already landed and now they're like, okay, what next? What would be your one piece of advice that you want to tell them?
A lot of us feel like things happen to us in life, and I don't want to take from that reality for somebody. Somebody out there is saying to themselves, yeah, these things did happen to me. And the truth is, if it's in your past, something has happened to you, you can't really get a chance to reframe that. All you get a chance to do is decide and make a decision today what you're going to do as you move forward. If you are in this space, if you are looking to make the plunge, quote unquote, take the plunge, you've been preparing for it. You've always known this is something that you want to do someday, and you're wondering if today is today. I would challenge you to actually make a decision. I believe that God works with the step of faith. Yeah. But if we never take the step of faith, that He'll just continue to sustain you where you are. Right. I really, a lot of us feel like, oh, He's got this grand plan, and He'll bring things back around, and He'll bring it back around again, and He'll give you several opportunities. God is a God of multiple chances, right? Yeah. And He's a God of multiplication, right? So He will instill in you one gift, and if you do well with that one, He will multiply. So it doesn't
Mm.
necessarily always mean that there's one piece that, oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's got to do this one thing. That's what my
Right.
one thing.
Right.
God
Right.
gave me
Right.
this one thing. This is what I know I need to do.
Yeah.
And I know I've been challenged with that my entire life. Everybody keeps on saying, Kirk,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you just pick one? Why do you have to do voiceovers and hosting and speaking and
Mm-hmm.
IT and media? Why can't you just pick one? That's not what God gave for me.
That's right.
And listen, if God gave you that one thing and you know that that's your thing and you kill whenever you do that thing,
Yeah.
do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Yeah.
But that's not my story, and I
Right.
don't box anybody else in, and don't be
Mm.
boxed in,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if you're watching this, as we've said, as Chris has said, if you're still watching this stage of the game, and you're still wondering, okay, so I've heard all what you guys have had to say, I've seen this coaching process that you've gone through, I've seen you kind of figure out some things in terms of scaling and automation and some of the pieces that you're going to implement in
Mm.
your area, but I'm still at the ledge trying to figure out, should I jump?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, don't wait for somebody to push you.
Yeah.
Don't wait for a gust of wind and say that God was in the wind. Make a
Yeah.
decision. Make a decision. Make a
Mm.
calculated, methodical, thought out decision to jump or
Yeah.
to turn around and go back.
Go
Don't
back
just sit at the edge. Don't just
and
sit in one
pontificate.
space.
Yeah.
Make a decision that
Mm.
will lead to action. Whatever that action is, I am sure that God will
Mm.
bless it. That is what I'm certain of. Most people are going to say, well, God's going to only bless if you jump, or God's going to
Mm-hmm.
only bless
Mm-hmm.
if you turn around and go back. I am certain that God will bless in either way.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll bring you back to that ledge again at some other point in time. And at that point, you'll make the decision to jump. Or
Mm.
maybe it was never for you to jump in the first place. We got to leave room for the possibility that God gave us the opportunity of choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So take that choice and make a decision, right? Don't vacillate between the two for too long. Actually make a decision and
Mm.
actually move towards action. So that's the last piece I would want to share. And again,
Right.
I would only want to follow that up by saying a word of thanks to Chris for again creating this space and allowing me on the platform, giving me some time to chat through some of my story and share with you guys some of the
It
things that
was.
I've experienced and just watching us walk through this process of
Yeah.
looking at some of the challenges that I'm facing and being able to kind of talk it through. It's been phenomenal.
Kirk, you have had, and it's still being processed, right? It's still happening.
Yeah,
An amazing story that's just being unfolded, as even as we're talking today. And
absolutely.
it's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure connecting with you as well. Listen, guys, this is I think this is the second one. We're gonna have more to come like this. Now, Kirk, if they want to reach out, if they want to connect with you,
Yeah.
where should they find you?
Right here on the bottom, you're seeing at Kirk R. Nugent.
Okay.
Essentially, that's my handle on pretty much all the platforms. It's Kirk R. Nugent. There is another guy named Kirk Nugent. He's a phenomenal public speaker. He won Def Poetry Jams like 4 years in a row. He's
Get
ridiculous.
out.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He actually did some. He's done some public speaking for Les Brown as well. So he's a big name.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so
Okay.
he has kirknugent.com. So don't look
Yeah.
for that. Kirk R. Nugent is me,
Gotcha.
and kirknugentspeaks.com is my site. So those are the spaces I play in. If you find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, Kirk R. Nugent is the one.
All right. Well, guys, this is our second conversational strategy session. I don't even know. Hey, Kirk, I don't even know if this is a session. Don't know what this is. We're still formulating it, but it was great. Had
Yeah,
a good time with you, man. And well,
absolutely.
we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we